Hi, this is Michelle Fife, creator of Copra, and you're listening to 11 O'Clock Comics.
Hello, folks. Welcome to 11 O'Clock Comics. This is episode 859.
Oof.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. This is all sounding a little weird to you all, I'm sure, but that's because our brother, our co-host, our producer, Vince B, is spending time with the family. So, I am David A. Price.
And of course, I am Jeff the Land Shark.
You are not Jeff the Land Shark, everybody. This is Jason Wood.
What's up? And as we hinted last week, we have a very special guest making her return to the fourth chair. I guess third chair tonight, but normally we call it the fourth chair. Someone who we had an absolute ball talking to a few years back, and a lot has happened in her career since then. You no doubt have been following her 50-issue triumphant run in Captain Marvel. She also wrote, in my opinion, one of the best runs on Black Widow that we've ever seen. Of course, more recently, and we'll get into that here tonight, she has been making her triumphant return to creator-owned comics with Black Cloak and soon The Cull. And certainly last but not least, she is making the jump over to the Distinguished Competition to resurrect one of my favorite, I guess we'll call it a B-list team, just because I would say the JSA and JLA are probably the A-listers, but still one of my favorites, the Birds of Prey. Please welcome back to the show, Kelly Thompson.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome back.
It's February 2019.
Oh, wow.
We got to talk
were so
about.
young.
Oh my God. And yeah, and it was pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. I mean, that's really what I mean by
Yes.
the aging.
For sure.
100%. I mean, yeah, we everything we
We're all
talked
20
about.
years older now. Yeah, we're all 20 years older now.
We had the Nancy Drews.
That.
And as Jason said, I mean, when you were on last time, we got to talk about everything up to that point. Heart-shaped box, Nancy Drew, the Mr. and Mrs. X, your X-Men work, and then since you've been gone, we had a phenomenal run on Captain Marvel, and Vince and I absolutely love Black Cloak. And congrats on that, and congrats on the upcoming Birds of Prey, as Jason referenced. But I mean, since then you've had Deadpool. You had a story in Silver Coin, the Black Hammer Visions. You did some Wolverine. Jason mentioned Black Widow already. You did some Spidey, which I was happy to see. So I mean, you've been busy.
I have been busy. I've done a lot of great projects. Black Widow was obviously one of my favorites. It was such a sort of passion project, but when I was dreaming of writing it, I never imagined I'd be getting to do it with Elena and Jordy doing art and colors, and the two Raphaels who did incredible work for us on some alternate issues. And one of my favorite things I've ever gotten to do was when we did that sort of flashback issue in the middle of the arc with the different art style, which worked really well, I thought, but especially Jordy was the one who really she was the one who really brought that all together to me, because Raphael did incredible work. I was super happy with it. We were all happy with it. But when I was looking at it, when it was complete, it was beautiful, but I was like, I don't know if it completely works. And Jordy was starting in on the colors, and we had talked a little bit about using a sort of zipatone effect or a halftone effect to make it, give it this aged quality. And I just didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if I was explaining myself right. I didn't know if she got it or whatever. And we did have to go through a couple passes, as I recall, to sort of get it right. And then I was like, listen, I trust you. I think you know what I want. Just go in there. I know you can do it. And what she came back with was so brilliant. It totally tied. It made Raphael's art just completely sing, but it just completely made the idea work. And it's maybe my biggest regret, because I'm a younger writer. I'm not a young person, but I'm a younger writer in comics. When we won the Eisner for that, I really regret not making a huge 5-alarm fire out of the fact that Jordi Belair did not get an Eisner for that. Like, she didn't get a statue. And it's a crime. Would any of the books, like, if you're an Eisner winning book, if you're even an Eisner nominated book, don't tell me the colors aren't a huge part of while you're there. It's a whole piece. Everyone on that team should get the Eisner, and I regret not saying anything. I think I talked myself into, don't be the new kid who's making a fuss. You'd probably like to win another Eisner again. Maybe you shouldn't make everyone mad at you. And I talked myself out of it, and I've regretted it.
Well, I mean, that's very kind of you, and I think if there's one solace, it's that Jordi. She's won at least 2 that I can think of, and I'm sure she'll win many more.
She gets nominated all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, yes, it's personally for me. It's about Jordi, of course, because I think she's fantastic, and because she deserves it. But it just speaks to a larger thing. And I know we talk about these things a lot in credits on a cover, credits on a spine, credits on a collection, the order in which the credits are done, like all this stuff we talk about. But it never even occurred to me that Jordi Belair wouldn't get an Eisner for the work she did on Black Widow if we won. Like, it was incredible. We wouldn't have been there without her. Like, it's as absurd to me as saying we would have won without Elena or without me. Like, it was a huge part of the book, and I wouldn't argue that coloring is always that big a part of the book, but it was for ours. And I would argue that most books that make it to an Eisner nomination, it is that big a part of it, because everybody has to pull. It's like it's like being in a boat together. If one person isn't pulling, it's not working,
Right.
So, yeah, anyway.
Or like a 5-string, it's if one's out of tune, it's noticeable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
No.
I don't mean to be a fucking downer or whatever. And now I'm cussing. It's been a long week. I gotta admit.
Oh, you can. Yeah, we are R-rated, so no worries.
Don't worry about that.
I have to say, I mean, that series was just magic to me, and I just think that selfishly, I wish there was even more of it. But what you all did do was just amazing, and I agree with you. I mean, is it? So you said Elena. I guess I thought it was. Or you said Elena. I thought it was. But Elena Casagrande. I mean, her art is just timeless. And then like you said, the Pimentel fill-in issue was very memorable because of just very nice to see the juxtaposition in visual style, given that it was a different time period. But the whole thing was just awesome, and I want to commend you. And I probably mentioned this years ago, not that you would remember, but I'm a huge Deadpool fan, and I also note that I think that the hardest thing to do as a writer is comedy, because I think comedy is far more subjective than anything else. It's just a wider range of what people think is funny or don't. And so I always think it's a daunting task to take on a character like Deadpool that's so front and center funny. And I think you did excellent with that as well. And again, that's always sort of a personal litmus test. I'm like, oh, someone's going to write a Deadpool run. Let's see how they do. So thank you for that, for both of those. I mean, just great entertainment. I had a blast with them.
Well, thank you. I think on the Deadpool thing, I mean, I agree with you about the humor thing. I mean, unfortunately, something like sense of humor and writing jokes, I mean, there's nothing I can really do about that. Like, you find my take on Deadpool funny or you don't. Like, I can't help people who aren't in that groove with me. So while you worry about that a lot, I certainly did. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not funny. This is not gonna go well. All the things you freak out about. it was sort of pointless to worry about it because I knew I couldn't do anything. What am I going to do? Write it different? But what was daunting on Deadpool was just he's been everywhere and he's done everything, and it's so hard to tell new stories with him. And we were so excited when we sort of burrowed into this. It started as a sort of a Seven Samurai story where he's sort of assembling a weird team to fight a thing, and we ended up with the King Deadpool thing, and it was just so rich, and it just spoke so much to things that go on with Deadpool, but also let us like play with really funny things, and it was a great time. There's a writer, Michael Miller, who wrote a non-fiction book, I guess you call it. It's full of interviews, and it's got some religious stuff in it and everything. I'm sorry, I don't know the final title of it or whatever, but he's got a chapter about Deadpool and specifically the King of the Monsters arc, and so he interviewed me for it. And I'll tell you what, when he sent me the chapter to check it out, I cried. I cried because it was so amazing for someone to get it, because you're out here writing your little Deadpool story and you want people to laugh. You want people to buy the book. You want people to laugh. You want to create these cool moments for Deadpool that really get remembered and that like help define him as a character. Like you want to do all that stuff, but we were also trying to talk about monsters and what makes people monsters and why Deadpool isn't one, and how it's actions and all this stuff. And like, not a lot of people talk about that stuff. So seeing like this very smart academic guy talk about it, I was like, oh my God, I feel so validated. So now I feel validated on two fronts, the jokes and the theme.
Nice.
We nailed it. Why didn't we get more than 10 issues? Damn it. That's always the way.
Well, I mean, you've done it. You joked that you commented that you were a newish writer to comics, but you certainly now had a really solid run and gotten a chance to do and touch on a lot of different books. What is the experience with that in terms of working at Marvel and then I guess now DC, but you're new there in terms of handling the somewhat unknown of how long you're going to have. I mean, I assume sometimes they do at a minimum they're going to give you, say, 10 issues, 2 arcs, so for sure you've got that much room to work with, or is it more nebulous than that when you go into most titles? Well,
so it's I think the thing you have to know is that it's sort of constantly changing. I mean, before the pandemic, they wanted X, and now they want Y. So I don't think there's a hard and fast. They're sort of constantly looking at a changing market and figuring out what they can make inside of it. But typically when stories get launched, when a new book gets launched, you might, if you're not told it's a mini outright, you're probably told like 10 to 12 issues. So, like, for example, that's what happened to me on Hawkeye. Hawkeye was the first book I was given that was like a book I built. I had been given, or I had inherited, rather, A-Force after I had come off the co-write with Kelly Sue DeConnick on Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps. I'd inherited A-Force because G. Willow Wilson had a family emergency and she basically had to leave the book. So I got that, and during that time, I was building this new Hawkeye book with Sana, and when we finally got the green light, it was that we were getting 12 issues. And I felt really great about that, because 12 seemed like a lot, because A-Force got canceled at 10, and I'd only been involved in a mini, and I know how these things go. It's hard to launch these books. So then partway through, it wasn't going great. I don't know if you remember that. I mean, Hawkeye was very critically acclaimed. We got nominated for an Eisner for that. We had really good word of mouth and everything, and we were doing pretty well among the new titles, but I don't know if you guys remember, it was like a whole bunch of sort of all new titles launched in that same like year or so. And I think it was feeling to the comics line as a whole like they had done too many, where it was like young heroes or new heroes or more diverse heroes taking over, and so it was like the line was feeling crowded with that or something, I don't know. And so we were in trouble along with a lot of those other titles, and then they told us we were going to cancel us at 10, and I was like, you guys, I can't even wrap this up at 10, like you got to at least give me 11. And so I reworked it so that we could wrap in 11, and then we got sort of a Hail Mary save, and they greenlit us for 5 more issues to 16, and so we had to fill in with Michael Walsh before that final arc, and that's, I'm sorry to say, how it happened on Captain Marvel too. Like, we were popular, we were strong, we were above the line of getting canceled, and we kept doing that. I think they kept thinking we were going to fall too far, but we kept getting it. It kept coming back. We were sort of, after the first 2 arcs, which was the arc where they like fight Nuclear Man or whatever, and then there was a tie-in to all the Thor stuff that was happening at the time with Jason Aaron's Thor stuff, and so they thought we were going to be canceled after that, and then the Star arc was like a huge hit, and so we bought this time, and then the last Avenger arc was a big hit, and so then we were sort of rolling and these things were happening, but Immortal Hulk was happening at the same time, and it just wasn't the same thing that was happening to them, where they were so popular and so critically acclaimed that Marvel could look at it and be like, okay, you guys have bought yourself, to issue 40 or 50 or whatever it was going to be. Like, maybe they didn't tell him they were making it to 50, but they gave Al a lot of room there to like build his thing. But we never had that rope. We had, okay, you got another arc. Go for it. Can you make it happen? And we're like, okay. And we like get our crap back together and we pitch another arc and we dig in, and then that just kept happening. And I think it was when we were in the high 30s, they were like, okay, we're going to make it to 50. Like, just
nice.
make the plans for, and that's why I was able to plan for that sort of bigger Brood arc to wrap us up, and then the issue 50. And so that took us through like 43 to 50. So it's different for every book. I mean, Al and I were doing the same thing at the same time, that from the outside looks like they were equally successful in a way, but his was way more successful, and thus they were doing theirs a bit differently. So I think having to do it that way dictated some of our choices, and that's probably both good and bad. It probably made us make some smart choices and kept us a little leaner and a little smarter than maybe we would have been if we'd sort of gotten fat and happy on the idea of, oh, look at the 25 issues ahead of us, we could do anything. Sometimes that can get you in trouble, but I would have loved to develop some more B and C plots that had a little more depth and intensity to them, and complexity. There's only so much you can do when you have to reinvent everything every 5 or 6 issues.
Yeah,
right.
And it's obviously the business, the industry has changed over the years. I'm just, as you're talking about it, and how you have to kind of plan things out in short bursts or increments. And I'm thinking about, and again, I know it's a different day and age, but I'm thinking about back then, with whether it's Peter David on Incredible Hulk, or just anybody like that, where you're just writing stories because it's a monthly serialized work, and you're just telling stories because they're going to keep going. But nowadays, because Deadpool going to 10 issues, Black Widow going to however many issues, and you're kind of it has to, I don't know if it's, I don't know how frustrating it might be, and I don't know, obviously you have number crunchers and bean counters, but it's almost like, and I'm not blaming the editors, but I don't know why you want to kind of handicap your creators, because they just want to tell good stories that people are going to be invested in.
It's definitely not the editors. I mean,
I didn't think so.
Yeah, right. Let's be clear. The editors are
I mean, they're your biggest cheerleaders, I would think.
You can get a bad editor for sure. I mean, that can happen. I've certainly had it happen. I'm sure it will happen again to me. Having a bad editor reminds you why good editors are so important. They're vital. And most of the editors at Marvel, and I would bet at DC too, are in there just fighting for their creators, fighting for their jobs, fighting for their rates, fighting for the best possible story. They're super invested. I it's money people. It's people way higher up the chain than that. And I'm not even trying to paint anyone with a big, broad, bad guy brush. I think they have jobs to do, and their jobs are different than mine, and their jobs are about shareholders and budgets and bottom line and sales charts. And my job is sales chart plus good story, and then hopefully you get as close to both of those things as you can. But it's very hard as the creator to watch these things happen and to not be in control, and sometimes it's really heartbreaking. But in the time I was at Marvel and in all the people I met there, I really, even people that I didn't really like that much or that I don't really vibe with, they just really love comics, man. They just, like, everyone I interacted with, even the higher up people who would come to the summits and stuff, they really care about comics. They like comics. I'm not saying that makes them right all the time. They're human beings and they have blind spots. And like I said, they are answering to different, gods than I am. I mean, they're one of the gods I have to answer to, but you know what I mean? Like, they have different jobs than I do, and I don't think anyone is out there trying to fuck things up. It's just a really hard business that has a niche audience that gets splintered more and more all the time. And it's hard. It's hard to make a sustainable life out of this. It becomes even harder with the things going on with AI and the strikes and everything. I mean, it's a grim picture right now, I'll be honest with you. There's more avenues for artists than ever in the sense of Kickstarter and things like that. But, especially with the huge ramp up of AI in the last couple months, I mean, if I was an artist, I mean, just putting your art out there feels like a huge risk now because, is your style going to be the style in 5 years that everything looks like because AI was trained on it? Like, I mean, it's like, it's dark. It's dark as an artist right now. And coming right out of the pandemic into this is it's dark.
I will say, I guess
it's not a super up interview.
No.
I would say relative to AI, I mean, because I've spent a lot of time trying to understand it for my quote unquote day job, and I will say that any seismic change like this is going to have material impact. Some, bluntly speaking, right? History tells us some jobs will be eradicated, right? Some will alter, and then others will crop up. Like, there will be new types of, but I guess because I love art so much and because my dad's an artist, and I would like to think that at least when it comes to things like comics or animation, where so much, yes, there is the technical aspect of rendering the drawings, but as you well know better than we do, there is a magic to the storytelling aspect, and you can give a machine all the prompts in the world, and it's still not going to have the life that a talented artist is going to bring to the project. So I'd like to think that at least in areas where you're storytelling, doing sequentials, portraying like a moving narrative, I'd like to think that it's more insulated than creators fear. But I understand a lot of creators are living, paycheck to paycheck and are freelance, and so I understand the fear. I totally get the fear, but I'm hoping it's not as dramatic as that.
I think, nobody wants to be out here being the guy who's like, automobiles are wrong, the horses are just like, so, I get it. You don't want to be the guy standing in the road like that, but the ethics of it are pretty murky right now, and it very much feels like we're plunging headlong into it without really understanding it. And that's maybe a false narrative, because I'm sure lots of people understand it very well, but it's been sent out into the population and we don't really understand it. So,
no, that is for sure. And Kelly, I don't know if you're a member of the Writers Guild as well as doing comics, but I know that obviously with the writer's strike, I have a few friends that are guild members and so have been paying reasonably close attention to what they're trying to deal with. And certainly as I'm sure as a writer, even if you're not part of the guild, there is that one of the talking points on the writer side is really putting some some framework and some guardrails around AI to at least make sure that this doesn't just become a maelstrom of like everybody getting.
Yeah.
And I, since they seemingly both sides haven't made any progress on their negotiations, I have no idea how that's going to fall out. But I do applaud them for making it a point front and center. Because certainly if these negotiations had happened 9 months ago, it probably wouldn't have even been a talking point. So I think it's smart for them to try and. But with all that said, I mean, I will say that you certainly, like you said, you were a Marvel exclusive for, I think, what's 4 years, right? Or is it?
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 years or something like that. I think it was 2018 when I signed my first contract, I think. So yeah, and then but I've been working with them, mostly them, since 2015. So yeah, it's a big weird change. It's been an emotional change for me. I'd love to be like, oh no, I just walk away and I go over here and I do my other thing. But I'm very susceptible to the, but we're family, which is really dumb because it doesn't help you in negotiations. It doesn't help you in all sorts of things. But I do get very attached, particularly because I love the Marvel characters and it's something I'm very attached to since I was a teenager. So, but I have to say it's been really fun. It's been really fun to dive into something new. I mean, not that I haven't been reading DC comics all along. They were a big part of. They weren't my first love in comics. That was mostly X-Men, but does not take you long to find Batman when you're 15. So, I've loved those characters. I love that, and it's the one downside when you sign an exclusive is that you do not get to play in that pool for a while. So. It's really exciting to get to do that now. It's a little intimidating too, but I will say that DC has been amazing. Like, when I wrote the pitch for this Birds of Prey, I was like, well, I mean, I'm just going to put all my favorite fucking characters in this because I don't know. Like, how will I ever get a chance to write this book and these characters again? I don't know. So let's just put everyone I want in here. And then I think on some level I didn't really expect them to say yes. I mean, I knew it was a good pitch, but I was just like so blithely just doing whatever I wanted, which doesn't mean that it doesn't tie into a lot of Birds of Prey stuff. And like, I love to think that they just saw the pitch and they were like, it's so good, we can't say no. But they said yes. They said yes to basically everything I asked for. And then when we were talking artists and stuff, like Leo is always on my list. He's the top of my list every time. I think he's a genius. I think he's highly underrated. And I couldn't believe for a minute that we got him. And then when Jordy came on, I was like, okay, I might be dead and like this is heaven or something. Like something might have, maybe I'm in a coma somewhere and I'm unaware of it because it's just going so well. And like the pages Leo turns in, he sent some things last night. And I mean, I was just cackling with delight at this double page spread from issue 2. It's so smart and fun. It's just such an incredible, I honestly, when, we had such a really good rollout with the character releases on social media.
For sure.
But part of me, and I was having to tamp this down because I was trying to be cool, but I would get sort of mad when people would be getting mad about it, in partly because I was just like, you people don't deserve Leo. Like, not because they were even saying anything about him specifically. Most people were really complimentary. But when people were bitching about the book because so-and-so isn't in it, or I don't want Harley, or whatever the thing. And I just thought, you guys don't know how fucking great this book looks. And it's so fun. And you're making me feel like you don't deserve it. Like, Leo deserves no one to ever say a bad word to him ever. He's just such a thoughtful, great comics maker. It's pure fun with him, and I'm very lucky.
That's awesome. I was a huge fan of Gale's run on Birds of Prey. In fact, it was one of the earliest, because like you, I was a Marvel zombie for many, many years before I read other comics, and then I was reading Marvel as a teenager, and then really didn't read DC in earnest until I was probably close to like 30 years old. And
wow.
So, Yeah.
Well, let's
But
be clear. You said that was like me, but that wasn't me. I was reading DC when I was a teenager.
oh, gotcha. Okay. Because you mentioned loving the X-Men and stuff. So
No,
at
no,
first,
like,
at first.
X-Men were like my intro for sure, and
Gotcha.
they were my first love, and they're still my prime love in comics. I still gravitate back to them more than anything. But what I was trying to say was, and said it badly, I'm sorry, is just, I mean, you're in the comic shop and you're curious. It doesn't take you long when your X-Men isn't in to be like, oh, I know about Batman. Let me see,
For sure.
And for someone my age, DC and Image had far more. I mean, they were often those horrible bad girl books that were not good, and I include DC in this. I mean, the Jim Ballant Catwoman. I mean, I read all of that, and I don't even know if I liked it back then. But there weren't a lot of solo female titles. I mean, I don't know that Marvel had any in the 90s that I was reading, and when they did, they came with art that was sort of as bad as the sort of Image bad girls stuff. So sometimes I was just looking for that character that you can connect to, right? I mean, like, I feel like that's why I read Catwoman, because she was cool and I wanted to like her and I wanted to understand that DC world of characters, even though the stories didn't super connect for me. Like, I wasn't super into it, but you're always just searching. And so, yeah, that was sort of how I first got to DC, was Wonder Woman and Batman and Catwoman. And but I will say one of the 90s, or I guess it was early 2000s books, is the Cassandra Cain book, which I love, which is an incredible. It's just an incredible comic. I'm sure there are parts of it that don't age super well. We all struggle with that, but for the most part, it's just a really good book. It's a really smart character. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think your team. So Dave is probably going to snicker, because one of my favorite tropes in any storytelling, but particularly comics, is the getting the band together idea. So I love launches of new team books for that reason, because inherently you have to introduce, like, how are they forming, and I could eat that up. You could give me a comic that's objectively, like, terrible, but if it's about getting a team of people together, I'm here for it. So like, I live for the team reveals. So I have to say, like, and for me, like, I think, like, if I were sort of master of the comics universe, I would want teams to be a mix of the classic members and then new members to keep it interesting. And I feel like that's what you went for. So, so unless I'm missing any, I think at least what I saw is that the team is confirmed to be Black Canary, which certainly makes a ton of sense as the classic leader. Cassie Kane, aka Batgirl, and then we get interesting. We get to Harley Quinn, which makes sense given her popularity and general awesomeness. And then I think the two X factors that that's cool, like, I didn't expect that, are Big Barda and a Zealot, which I think, like, that's the deepest cut, and I love to see it. So like what was, you said you sort of threw out a list and then they were like, yeah, cool. I mean, like, is there anything in particular about those characters and your experiences as a reader that made you want to choose them specifically? I'm just curious, like, how it came together.
Well, so issue 1 is very much the build the team issue, so you'll enjoy that. And it's a little oversized, 25 pages,
Excellent.
So extra fun. And that was part of why we did there are some, one of the things when you build one of those team issues is that that's really fun, and you hope that people like it. I mean, I am a nerdy geek too, so I, of course, like that, but it's not often enough to, like, hang the whole issue on, especially because the team's on the cover, right? So you've blown your reveal, and so that was why we did that whole social media launch. I was like, listen, this is a weird team, so let's make it work to our advantage. Let's make some hay out of it. If we run this in solicits without doing anything, then it's blown. We're done. Like, it's announced. There it is. And then everyone's going to say whatever they're going to say about it. So let's turn it into a little event. And it worked so well. It was way better than I thought. I wasn't sure because, Twitter's pretty broken these days. I wasn't sure how well it would go, but it went great. And, so first issue is building that team. And then I was very excited that I didn't see a single person. So I read thousands of tweets and things and articles and all this crap that week, and I didn't see a single person mention Zealot. And I was so excited because even though that meant she was way more obscure, which maybe is not the smartest idea, I just felt like we'd really finally. It's so hard to trick comic fans. They know everything. They're such nerds. They're all well read and they know what they're talking about. I mean, let's be real, not all of them, but yeah, a lot of them are really well read and they really know what they're talking about. And they often know more than I do because I don't have time to read every little thing, sometimes. So I was very happy that we sort of got one over on them. Nobody expected Zealot. But, it's hard to put your cast out there, especially when they trend super white and your only character of color is fully masked. Come on, Cassandra. So I felt a little worried about the sort of diversity angle, but it's one of those things where you feel like, that's not the whole team. There is more diversity there. We're just not really seeing what the book is really going to look and feel like yet. There are still surprises that we're hiding. That are things I think people will be excited about and things that change sort of the way the book works. But, you can only do what you can do. I appreciate that people are sort of taking it on faith. I've seen a lot of really people who are like, well, I'll read the first issue and see. And honestly, that's all I would ever ask for.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
If you don't get it or don't like what we're doing in the first issue, you absolutely should leave. Because it's much like Hawkeye, issue 1. We know what we are from page 1, issue 1. Like, that's the book. There's no uneven footing as we figure out what our vibe is or we figure out who we are. We know exactly who we are, and it's there on page 1. And so you'll either be into it by page 25 or you won't. And that's fine. What more could I ask for, right? And so the team is weird. I think the team is very serious and very powerful because it's a very serious mission. There's a lot at stake personally for Dinah, among other things. And so she builds a really aggressive team. And then... But, Zealot and Cassandra would, if they had their way, never speak. Barda speaks strangely, and she's a little unpredictable. She's still got sort of a fish or a stranger in a strange land vibe, just a little bit, right? And then Dinah, I would say Dinah is pretty normal. Like, she's not a chatty character, but she's also not a laconic character. And then, so who do you need? I mean, honestly... People who don't like Harley, I get it, but trust me, I'm the writer. We needed her. The book really works, but when I was writing it, and Leo agreed, actually, he was like, I didn't really expect it, but Harley was really fun here, and I agree with him because water isn't interesting. That's why you need oil. You need that oil to go with that water. It's the same reason that Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Scooby Gang needs Cordelia. Without Cordelia, it's like everyone hugging all the time, or it's like everyone is on the same page all the time. Everyone is too supportive. You need someone there to go, wait, what if you're wrong? Or, I'm not sure I believe you. Like, you need that contrast. And there's a little bit of it there. I think Barda is a pretty good character. She speaks truth to power whenever she wants. So she's got that vibe, but the book really came alive with Harley, and I think it worked before she comes in, but it works even better once she arrives. And I hope people will agree. The funniest thing I've seen in the commentary is everyone being concerned it's going to become a Harley Quinn book, and that is never gonna happen. Like, I don't want to insult Harley fans because I like Harley Quinn. I think she's a really interesting character. I enjoy writing her. I think I write a version of her that people are gonna like. She's my least favorite character on the team. There's no fucking way it's becoming Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. Like if anything, it was gonna become Big Barda and the Birds of Prey, or Cassandra Cain and the Birds of Prey. Like, it's just not even a thing that even crossed my radar because I know how I feel about the characters. So it's really funny to watch people get super upset about that. And I'm like, Harley? No.
Or like hardly.
You should be, yeah, you should be worried about Barda, maybe.
And I've seen the preview pages or at least some of the panels you've shared on your Substack, and just unlettered, just pure black and white line work. It looks absolutely amazing. Right?
That double page spread with the DeLuca effect with all
yes.
those Black Canaries and Cassandra Canes fighting. So that's page 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's page 4 and 5, but I'm just saying, like, we hit the ground running. We do not stop. It's a super fun book. I hope people are going to flip out about it. I'm worried about it because it's our first thing over there, but it's hard for me. I don't know. I had one real gut check moment the week of the release when people were getting so mad about Babs and Huntress not being in it. I expected it with Babs, and I knew I'd hear a lot about Huntress not being in it, but I did not expect it to be as intense as the Babs stuff, which I had come prepared for. But the Huntress took me by surprise, the level of intensity that people were mad she wasn't there or interested in her being there. But what I never really was worried about it because I was like, I've seen the issue. Like, I know how good it is. They're just gonna like it. It's so good. It's so fun and cool. And then I was like, oh wait, that's what I thought about West Coast Avengers #1, and I still feel that way. I think that's a great first issue. I love it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Stefano Caselli's art is so good.
Yep.
It's so fun. It's so cool. It, like this, knows what it is. And so then I freaked out. That was my first freak out, where I was like, oh shit. Is this going to happen to me all over again? I don't think it is. But it did give me pause because sometimes the issue being great, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just not what the market will bear. And like, it will break my heart. It will break my heart if that's what happens here, but I hope it's going to go another way. I
think it will.
We'll
I hope so too. We are. I can't say that our podcast community is indicative of the broader comics community, but it certainly can say with absolute clarity that our community is super stoked for it, and I think they have impeccable taste.
They do.
So
Yeah.
hopefully
they know what good shit's all about.
That's good. That's good.
Now,
for sure. We've got probably two of like the biggest. So a lot of our hardcore listeners and patrons are also big original comic art collectors, and two of them are absolutely massive Barda fans. Where like if you ever see like Barda original art or sketches show up on the internet, chances are they're for one of these two gentlemen. And so they were just like over the moon when they saw Barda was added to the team. Like they just couldn't contain themselves. So I think it was a valiant choice. I'm curious, Kelly, just about the process of, so, you know, we obviously your exclusive runs out and then you're like, okay, I have optionality here. Like, do you like, is it simply that you over the years got to know people at DC and reached out and said, hey, I'd be interested in doing something over there? Or do they say, oh, hey, we heard your exclusive is up. How'd you like to come over and do something here? You know, I know that like from our friends that have written for both, we, you know, obviously once you're sort of in, you've got like the semi-annual retreats where you kind of plan out things, but I presume at least with the first book you're doing for one of them, you're not a part of that, at least initially. So how does getting from one to the other work on a practical sense for like, how did it work for you?
I think for most people, for how it was for me and how I perceive it to be for most people, is that you do something of note that some editor elsewhere likes, and they email you about it, and they go, hey, I really liked your Hawkeye, you know, if you're ever looking for whatever, you know, let me know, or whatever. And so you just sort of style editors and people at different companies. I've been talking to a few editors at DC for a while. I've been very friendly with Ben Abernathy and Andrea and Jess over there that, you know, we've been friends for a while on like social media and stuff. And then sometimes they'll go, do you want to pitch for this thing? And I'm like, and for years it was, well, I'm still under the exclusive, you know, hit me up in the next year or whatever. And then this year I decided I wasn't going to re-sign with Marvel. And so I told them, yeah, let's really start talking. And so I'm pitching something to Andrea right now, if I can get off my ass and press send. And then we have this thing I'm doing with Ben and Andrea, and I also already did a Andrea Shea, I should be saying. I'm sorry. Andrea Shea and I did with Annie Wu. We did a Harley Quinn short for Black, White, and Redder number two.
Yeah.
Well, number 2, I think we're in. So that'll be my first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of wanted the Birds of Prey thing to happen first, but I didn't want to miss out on the chance to do this Harley Quinn thing when I had a good idea for it. So I went ahead and did it, and I'm really glad I did. It's been a really great experience over there. It's been very positive. I had some really great people I was working with at Marvel, and I had a really fun time. And I'm still doing probably some Jeff Shape stuff. I finished some bit of it, but I'm doing more. It's Jeff for season 3 with my editor Sarah Brunstad right now, so that's good. But I had a couple bad experiences there over the last couple years that weren't great, and I don't even. Again, it's not, let's not dwell on it or whatever. It didn't send me packing or anything dramatic, but it just made you look at things and go, okay, well, maybe I need to try to do something a little different because this doesn't really seem to quite be working the way I wanted it to, or the way I thought it would.
Yeah.
And let me just say right up front, let me put plenty of that on me. I'm sure Marvel feels the same way about me. The pandemic was really hard for me. Like many people, I feel like my quality of work stayed high, but my quantity really dropped. It was very hard for me to get the same productivity going out, and I really struggled with it. And it's hard once a company comes to expect you doing a certain amount to have to change that and no, I can't maintain that anymore for my health. It's not going to work out. So it was time to try something different, and I have to say so far it's been really great. I know this has been sort of a downer of a cast. It's been a hard week in the world, I think, but I'm quite optimistic. Between Birds of Prey and Black Cloak and The Cull coming up in August, there's a lot of really amazing stuff. And also, it was great the way Captain Marvel ended. It felt like a huge accomplishment to do that and to get it and to have it done and to get the omnibuses, and for the first omnibus to do so well that they're going to collect the second half is great. These are all really wonderful wins. I just think you guys are hitting me a little bit at a moment where I'm in sort of a changeover. So you're hearing some stuff is messy when you're sort of making those transitions, and I think it's evident.
This is cinema verite. We're here for it.
I don't think. I mean, this isn't going to win you any awards, but I will say that at least now your Captain Marvel run will be joining in my long boxes runs like Matt Wagner's Madame Xanadu and the original Carl Kessel Harley Quinn run. I mean, all the series that I have complete runs of, whether it's Sweet Tooth, that Captain Marvel's joining that because I have all the issues, loved it. You even had me buy X-Men issues because of the Brood crossover.
All right, watch it now.
I know. See, it's been. I mean, and not to go back to Birds of Prey, but obviously you have no problem making characters your own, long established characters. You give them a unique voice. You have your take on it. Are there any writers of Giffen and DeMatteis for Barda or maybe even Tom? Are there any writers that you're fond of that worked on the characters in Birds of Prey that you might?
Oh, well, yeah, tons. I mean, I love Zealot from the original Wildcats stuff. Obviously, I'm a Wildcats girl. That Jim Lee stuff, I love it. Give it to me. Hook it directly to my veins.
Somewhere Brandon Choi is smiling.
Yes. So, I love all that stuff, but I can't deny that it was the Casey Phillips stuff later.
Sure.
For Wildcats, especially with it was a little more adult. It was more where I was at that point, in my life. I really loved that stuff, the Casey Phillips stuff. There's some Ellis stuff in there that's good too, I think. We're really going to be testing my knowledge here. I do love the Justice League Unlimited stuff, all the Geffen de Mateus, all that crazy stuff with the Justice League International.
Yep.
I love all that stuff from a sort of almost workplace comedy sort of point of view. There's Dinah in there. There's some Barda in there. I do love Barda from the Gail Simone bit of Birds of Prey. She was only in like 10 or 12 issues, something like that, when they like crossed over with Secret Six for a while. But those are some of my favorite stories there, like preceding the Tony Bedard Black Canary run and stuff. I thought all that stuff was really great. Of course, Tom King and Mitch Gerads' Mr. Miracle, I found. I mean, is that our Barda? Yes, but no. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it is our Barda, but this is just like, her in a cartoon instead of her in do you know what I mean? Like, It's like, that was like cinema verite, like you were saying, and this is much more a superhero comic. So I think it's a different take on her, but I don't think they're counter. I think it's just a different tone,
Mm-hmm.
For the kind of stories you're telling. Harley Quinn is harder for me. I struggle with her voice sometimes. That's why I laugh at people who are worried about her taking over the book. And me just being like, well, it's just not gonna happen. Because I do agree that she often overrides, she has a very Gwenpool, Deadpool thing where the specificity of their character, like getting their character right, means it's very easy for them to take over a book and make it all about them. And so I think you have to be very careful with that. I will say I totally have my eye on it, both from the experience of doing Deadpool and Gwenpool at different times, and also just from Harley not being my favorite character on the team. She's someone I'm super interested in. I think I'm using her in a smart way, but she's just not the definite for me. I definitely, I don't know if this is incendiary or not, but I do enjoy her on the TV show a lot. So I think that's not the voice I have for her. That's not really a fair picture, but is it that far away from that? I don't know. It's probably in that neighborhood.
You have the T. Franklin minis for that, so that's fine.
And so for, let's see. For Cass, I mean, I really loved the Becky Cloonan recent Batgirls, where it was all silent. Great. Yeah. Such a great issue. I do think some of the strongest Cass stuff we've ever gotten is all the original stuff with Kelly and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting everyone's name. I'm too old. And Canary, I think, is the stuff I sort of already talked about a little bit. The Justice League International plus some of the Birds of Prey and Black Canary series stuff. So, I mean, that's sort of where I come from. And then we've got a couple characters that I'm sort of dying to talk about that are going to be part of it that I think people will be excited about, but we just can't do it yet.
One of the cool things, Kelly, about you is that you clearly still enjoy reading comics. I mean, as you probably know, like as you've gotten to know other peers, and it seems like a lot of creators, partly because I guess they just get busy and are like, oh, I don't have so much time, but like just kind of stop reading other comics. And David and I and Vince have always been stunned at that. Like, we'll have friends or guests on and they're like, yeah, I don't really read many comics anymore. And I'm always like, what? Like that's kind of a bummer, but it seems like you still at least read where you can, right? Like you still enjoy comics as a reader.
I love comics. I read comics every week. I think I don't. I think it's sometimes hard. I'm not saying this is what's happening when you talk to people about this, but it is sometimes hard to talk about it because sometimes your colleagues are doing really incredible stuff that you just haven't gotten to read yet, but you hear it's incredible. And other times colleagues of yours did something you don't really like.
And you don't want to say it, right? Sure.
And you don't really want to talk about that because you just want to sort of support people and be positive. But I think I would say the number one runaway problem is we have to do so much reading for research. whether it's something you're writing or something you're trying to write, like pitching or whatever. There's just so much work to do that. It does get really hard to stay on top of current comics, because that's almost never what you need to read. I mean, maybe just to get the lay of a current situation, but mostly when you're going back to do a pitch or something, it's not, it's a book from 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever that you've got to do research for. So it's a little bit tricky in there, but I would not have a lot of faith or trust in someone who's genuinely not reading new comics, because how are you keeping abreast of what's happening in this industry, of the cool things people are doing or not doing? I feel like you've got to be looking at that stuff, otherwise you're very out of touch very quickly. I mean, do screenwriters not watch other television shows? Like, people writing pilots, like, you got to.
That's always been my perspective. Like, I understand, you sort of have to have a passion for the medium, right, and maintain it. But I will share a little anecdote to you that hopefully brings this full circle. So on our show, typically we do a thing at the end where we do In Your Travels, where we kind of just sign off with like something that we want listeners to read. And years ago we had Scotty Young on, who's a friend of ours, but obviously also a creator, and him. And so when it was time to do In Your Travels, his In Your Travels in this particular episode was none other than Heart in a Box. And he was like, he's like, there's this Kelly Thompson in this book, it's called Heart in a Box, you guys need to read it. And I still remember that, and I thought, I hope I didn't tell that story the last time we were on. I may have. I apologize if I'm being redundant, but now it seems even more germane, because obviously this was a few years after you did that book, and then we're a few years later here, we have you back here, and of course you made your return to the creator-owned world recently at Image with Black Cloak with your same creative partner, with Meredith McLaren.
Yeah.
So, did you know Meredith? Like, how did you know Meredith, like, leading into doing Heart in a Box? Because obviously we connect you two through that, but I didn't know if you were friends or knew each other before that.
No, so I met Meredith, and by met I mean internet. I mean, we've never been in the same room. So despite doing all this work together, it's just a weird thing about comics, right? So I met Meredith through Sophie Campbell. Sophie Campbell and I,
Gem,
but it was before Gem. It was way before Gem. She and I had become friends online through her blog and my blog and whatever, and I was a big fan of her work in general. And we really became friends. We started talking all the time. We still talk today, although much less than back then. And I knew that she wouldn't be able to do my book that I had a good idea for, because she was busy with her own stuff. But I thought she might know somebody who and I knew I would respect people that she thought were talented. And she knew of Meredith and knew her a little bit. I don't think they'd ever met, but they knew each other a little bit. And she linked me to her and a couple other people. And I just took one look at Meredith's stuff, and I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. I was like, let's see if she's interested. And so I just introduced myself to her, and she said she'd be open to looking at the pitch, and she looked at the pitch and she loved it and she liked the script, and that was it. And now we're doing Black Cloak together nearly 10 years later. Actually, it probably is 10 years later, because that came out in 2015. So yeah, we started working on it in probably 2013.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, I'm super glad that you decided to collaborate again, because especially the last two issues, the issues 4 and 5 of Black Cloak have probably been my favorite so far of the series. But it's just been visually, it's amazing.
Yeah.
There are not too many indie books, obviously, creator-owned books, but there are just some books out there where you cannot imagine anyone else doing it, and for me, Black Cloak is definitely in that category, because the look is, the colors are beautiful. I love the way flashbacks are handled. It's just, and the characters are outstanding. But it's just, I'm totally in love with this world. Every issue I bring it home from the shop, and I have to devour it. And when I read the 5th issue, I went back and I reread the 4th, just because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Because the end of the 4th issue, there's a pretty big holy crap moment. And I had to. I want to make sure I didn't miss a beat. But it is absolutely one of my favorite books. It's whenever anybody's asking, I'm looking for something new, or I'm tired of the same old, and Black Cloak is absolutely something I'm going to recommend. It's one of my favorite Image books right now, and
awesome.
Thank you. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making it.
I do think, not to act like I didn't do anything. Certainly, I'm a part of it, but I do think Meredith's work is really the star. She has such a unique style.
Mm-hmm.
It's so different than everything everyone else is doing. Even though I can see bits of her in what other people are doing, or bits of what other people are doing in her stuff, I just feel like she's doing something very special and not much like other stuff. It sort of looks animated, it sort of looks like it reminds me a little bit of cell painting, the same way that Fiona Staples' Saga reminds me of that a little bit, but they're different. They're still different. And I think she's an incredible storyteller and character designer and all the stuff that you have to be brilliant at to be a good comic book artist, but I think her colors are just truly, I think she always sort of brushes off these compliments, and I think it's because a lot of her coloring is very instinctual, and so I think on some way, this is all me theorizing, by the way, I'm sure Meredith will be like, that's all bullshit, Kelly is not an artist and does not know what she's talking about, and I'll be like, okay, fair enough, but it feels to me when she does it almost like she's afraid of it and doesn't trust it, because it comes to her very naturally, I think. And again, maybe she's just sweating bullets over every little dot and stroke and whatever. But to me, from my side of things, what happens is she just turns in these incredible things, and every once in a while she'll turn it in and I'm like, this is beautiful, but I don't really think you pushed it far enough, or what if this or what if that, and she'll come back with something and it's transcendent. It's so much better than the thing she did before that, it's almost like magic. It's almost otherworldly a little bit. And it's fascinating to work with her. She's so incredibly talented, and she remains quite fast and very efficient. We had to bump the book to August. It was supposed to come out the end of June, but now it's the first week of August, and I feel very bad about that, and you worry about it a lot, oh my god, are we going to lose readers? Are people going to forget about us? Blah, blah, blah. But, it's 33 pages long, so we added all this stuff, and it was just taking more time, and then she had some cons, but she was a machine. The only reason we were even in the danger zone to be late was because I had been sick, and so she's just this incredible... She's an incredible machine. It makes me angry that people want to replace her with AI, because it's a crime. Sorry, I don't want to go back to AI, but I just when I look at these artists just bleeding on the page for you, and I don't want to act like my job isn't hard. It is hard. The blank page is a terrifying, nightmarish monster that I get up every morning and face like a true brave warrior. This is what I have to tell myself. But for artists, what they do is so hard and so time-consuming. It really does feel to me like they open a vein to be able to do that, and physically how taxing it is on their body. And to have it not respected or, understood is painful. I am the beneficiary of so much really beautiful comic book work. It's easily the best part of my job every day, and I don't know, I just wish everyone appreciated it as they should.
I always think that the best part of being a comic book writer is getting the pages in, right, and seeing your ideas come to life.
100%.
That must be, yeah.
Especially someone like Kelly, who's you've worked with obviously, I'm not saying anything newsworthy, you've worked with some phenomenal artists.
For sure.
I've been very lucky.
What's
Oh no! I was going to say, I'm not what I would like. I'm not someone I would consider a cover person. It's been a long time since I've bought a comic. Long gone are the days where I would buy a comic because of the cover, right?
Yeah,
but I will say that the reason I'm bringing that up is that since I don't consider myself a cover person, I am struck by the fact that your covers for Black Cloak are so indelible to me, and part of that is because they are genuinely different than what we normally get. And for those that maybe are listening, because this is an audio show that don't know what I'm talking about, haven't read the book. First of all, shame on you for not reading the book. But the covers are, and I don't know the technical term because I'm not a graphic designer, but they're not full, like full bleed images. There's basically like a good, like I'd say 2/5 of the top of the page are a monochrome in its frame, and then there's a square image that takes up about, again, like 3/5 of it in at the bottom of the book above the, I think, very nice typeset logo, but the logo again isn't all that large. There's a lot of like space in it, and I'm curious, because again, like it's not. I mean, as someone who reads hundreds of comics a month, that's not. It stands out to me. So, what was the thought process there, and like, is that a you decision? Is that is that a Meredith decision? Like, I'm just curious
I guess it's ultimately my decision because I was the one who had the money for the Substack stuff. So I guess technically I was the writer and the money, and so probably I have the final vote. But so I would describe it sort of. It's almost like the idea. It's almost like it's a die cut cover, like that. There's like a window looking
that's
through.
Fair. Yep.
But that's sort of how I would describe it to people who haven't seen it. But I have to give all credit to Ryan Hughes, who's our book designer.
Okay.
And he pitched this right out of the gate, and I was very skeptical because, from my point of view, even though I liked that it felt different, which is a huge reason we did end up going with it, and I loved the logo, I just felt like we're going to have not only all Meredith's incredible art, but I had all this incredible art for issue 1 of these variant covers, and I was like, we're going to have to make all this variant cover art like really small within this frame, and we're going to have to, and he was like, no, we're going to integrate it every time we're going to get, I was like, that sounds expensive. He's like, no, it's fine. But he really had to talk me into it. And I've been very glad that he talked me into it because
nicely done, Ryan.
I agree with you. Our covers are really cool. They're very distinctive, and because they use that, except for we have a few clean dress covers here and there, it gives it a real consistency that is very cool. It's especially cool when you see it. I was just going to the image site to look up something, and I saw them all at the bottom there, and I was like, oh shit, those look cool.
Yeah.
Together on the digital shelf. So I'm glad you noticed. I'll make sure to let Ryan know.
Oh, for sure. You mentioned briefly, you just mentioned the Substack, and it's interesting that I don't know how, what is it, are we 2 or 3, are we 2 years into Substack now? I don't remember when it started,
like
but
2.
Yeah, I remember that when it was happening, we had a couple creators and friends come on the show right when it was happening that were involved and kind of walked us through the model and at the time, as a person who again, by day, when I'm not talking about comics is in finance, I thought, what a wonderful bonanza for you writers who are given this opportunity, because from my vantage, it's like, there's this like effectively giant pool of money that Substack wants to create a new market, and they're like, here's the money, and you guys just do something, and then if it doesn't work out, no downside. If it works out, great. So I guess my question for you is twofold. One, since we're past like that first year when you all got the grant or whatever they called it to kind of do your thing, you're still doing your Substack. So what has your experience been with Substack? Is what it is now for you the same as what it was then? Have you learned things? Do you still like it? And then two, did the Substack success, at least the initial financing, have a role in being able to jump back into creator own? Because as you just mentioned, I mean, it is not, especially the image model, you're sort of executive producer and taking the financial risk, at least at the outset, in terms of hiring the team and editing and production and printing. So like, I'm just curious how that all rolled together, and was Substack a big part of you being able to do this in the call?
So I think the Substack question is a couple things. I think first and foremost, Ed Brisson, Matt Rosenberg, and I all went to Substack for newsletters around the same time, well before the Substack stuff started happening with the Substack Pro, whatever deals that were happening. We went there primarily because Twitter was becoming so rough.
Mhm.
I mean, we'd started a Slack so that we could talk to each other not on Twitter DMs.
We have a Slack for our patrons for
Yeah.
the same reason. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so we just wanted to get away from Twitter, and so then the newsletter became, if this thing's really going to implode, like we need to try to migrate our readers and all this stuff. So we were already doing that stuff. So for just that reason, I think the newsletter is great and helpful. Like, separate from all the prose stuff, and especially with what's happening with Twitter now, I'm incredibly grateful that I've got like 3,000 readers over there or whatever. I've built this great little community. It's awesome. It's great. I have no complaints. Okay, well, there's one complaint, but let's leave that out today. But there's Black Cloak and the Cull do not exist without the Substack program.
Okay.
No doubt. And I'm probably still at Marvel Comics under exclusive and not writing Birds of Prey. So it's a complete game changer for me. I'd been trying for years, and whether it was because I accrued debt, in order to get where I was, and paying that off is harder than it looks, or, my partner and I moved to Portland right when my career was first taking off, and we're still paying that off, and he hasn't been able to work very much in Portland because he works in film and television, and the industry here is very unreliable, and so I just could never get out from under it to save up the money to hey, let's do this comic. And so without Substack knocking on the door, I don't know how much longer it takes me to get those books off the ground, but they're also probably not the Cull and Black Cloak, because windows close on these things. People get busy and they move on to other things. It's all about luck and timing, I'm sorry to say, or it's a lot about luck and timing. So right place, right time, and this money came in and I was able to make these things happen, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. I mean, depending on how some things go with Black Cloak and the Cull, they could be things that really change my career, and Birds of Prey too. And again, without the security of being able to do the Black Cloak and Cull books, I'm still tied to Marvel, probably. So in a deal that, and not that there's anything wrong with being tied to Marvel, but in a deal that I didn't think was good. So that's not great. So I'm super grateful.
Fantastic. There you go. So the Substack experiment was worth it, if for nothing else, that it got you the opportunity to go into creator.
Yeah, because I don't think anyone who took the deal was like, oh yeah, this is going to change comics forever. They were like, well, let's try it. We're all interested in that, especially because we've been going through this pandemic and the shops aren't open and printers aren't printing and all this stuff. Let's do it. But I think all of us were very smart who were lucky enough to get the call, because you could look at the contract and go, well, there's very little required of me in this. So if I can just meet these deadlines, it's really just a bunch of money to fund these things, and the Substack portion can work or not. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I will still have those books. So the Substack for me has been completely successful because it's built this audience, it's maintained it. I think, the failings of it are honestly all mine. I don't think they're from me being a fuck up or anything. I think it's just hard to launch 2 books, especially when you've never done it before. I mean, there was so much stuff that I just did not know or did not expect or thought I was going to have help with and then sort of didn't. So, there were so many lessons to learn. But yeah, I mean, without the Substack grant, none of that's happening.
It's like drinking at the fire hose, I guess, right? Having to learn how to do all the other parts of producing a comic at once, right?
Yeah.
Now, since you worked on Black Cloak for a few months before that, we're going to get the launch of the Cull. Have you found the formative stages of launching the Cull easier in any way, just because of what you learned with Black Cloak?
It is easier, but I have more help this time because I tried to fix that problem from last time. Also, Image changed their distributor, so everything changed. So yes, I learned, but then now I have to relearn, so you know how it goes. But in general, yes, it's going better. I understand the process more. I understand the deadlines more. I understand where all these things happen and what has to be done. But it's really hard for me because, there are obviously a lot of really great benefits of doing creator-owned stuff, but yeah, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of trade-offs for that. Like, yes, you can make all the gay characters you want, but nobody will stop you, which is great. But, you have to be the one who's, up in the middle of the night fixing files if they're wrong, so, and freaking out because some lettering that you don't know how to fix is wrong, or, whatever the million little things that can go wrong with production that you're not really qualified to fix but are somehow in charge of because you have to get other people to do it. I found it very stressful, and I found it very distracting to trying to be a writer, which is a sort of, annoyingly time-consuming sort of, hey, it doesn't really look like you're doing anything, and I'm like, hey, I'm really not, except for I'm trying to solve a plotting issue in my head, or whatever. Like, it's such a weird job, and it looks like you're not doing anything a lot of the time. But if you fill your brain up with a lot of other dates and facts and guidelines and all this other stuff, it really clogs up the sort of process. I found it very difficult.
Do you envision, maybe it's still too early to tell, but obviously it seems like Black Cloak was structured from the start as this 6-issue arc, and it seems like the model for Creator and now, and I think makes sense, is like you kind of plot arc to arc because you just never know what the sales and if it's going to make sense, and then you probably have some follow-on ideas if the opportunity's there. I'm curious if you have any thoughts as to whether you will continue with Black Cloak in some way, or is that still to be determined?
Black Cloak is going to keep going.
Nice.
Yes, we're very happy to do more.
Good.
As we wrap up 6, we're starting to talk about what the next arc will be. Are we going to renumber with the number 1? Are we going to try to do a number 7? How all of those discussions are happening. And then there's also a separate element that's sort of more of a web element that's sort of like a comic strip that sort of takes place in the Black Cloak world or something like that we're playing with. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we're building that I hope is going to really go over great. I do think we're pretty on the line financially. Like, the trade needs to do well, and I need new people to come in for issue 7 or 1, whatever we call it, once that trade is out. Like, we need to get the word out for when the new stuff launches to make sure we at least start with a strong first new issue for the new arc, because that really funds a lot of what's to come, and without the benefit of the Substack money, it has to be a much leaner budget. So it's going to be tricky, but I'm excited that we're doing it. I'm a little scared. I think you'll definitely get more close to 20-page issues. We're not going to have any 52-page issue 1s anymore, because that's when you have Substack money in your bank. You're like, we'll do it up. So I think that's the kind of thing, but I'm excited. I'm excited for us to try it with a little less net and see if we're able to make a go of it. I think we got a lot of love and praise and a lot of great reviews for Black Cloak. It just felt, even though it's a little scary to keep going, and it's risky, it just felt like what we both wanted, and it seemed like we'd built something that people had really responded to, and it seemed like a shame to give up on it after just 6. So I'm excited. We're going to keep going. And Meredith is too. She's got a lot on her plate, but as I mentioned before, she's a machine, so it's helpful.
Well, we'll do our parts, and David will be at the head of the tip of that spear, and make sure people give the second volume a try.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
No
thank
doubt.
you. Do you guys want me to send you the cull?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, because I was just about,
we do get. I mean, we are fortunate to get image preview copies when they're available. But yeah, I mean, they haven't sent us the call yet because I think it's not coming out until September, I believe. Is that right?
August.
It's August. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, these is it 4 or 5 pages? I mean, it's barely a tease. I was going to ask about anything you'd care to talk about it, but obviously, I mean, seeing would be great, but I'm super curious about it.
I'd be happy to send you guys the first issue. You're right that the first 5 pages really are a tease. The first 10 to 12 pages are pretty quiet. But I will say that everyone should pay attention. Like, Mattia's art is very detailed, and there's a reason why I didn't have to write a lot of words. It's because he put a lot of stuff that was supposed to go on the page is all there. Okay. So I was able to really dial it back. And I was excited about that. Mattia's art is, I don't know. One of my favorite things about doing the Cull and Black Cloak as my 2 creator owns is that they're so different. Like, I feel like if you like my writing, you'll like them both and you'll be fans of both, but they really could not be more different in like the style. And they're both sort of sci-fi, horror. Cull doesn't have a detective element, but it does have a mystery element, and you know, they both have horror, they both have fantasy, they both have sci-fi to them, so they seem like they should be similar books in some ways, but because Mattia and Meredith bring such different styles to it, it just completely changes them in such fascinating ways. I sometimes like to think about what the books would look like switched. If Mattia did Black Cloak for a while and Meredith did the Cull, like, what would those things look like? It's fascinating to me how I would be interested in seeing both of those things, but they're the wrong casts, and it's a good reminder that someone can be an incredibly talented artist. They can still be the wrong cast for a project.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Same way for writers, although probably a little less aggressively the same. Like, it's probably a little subtler that you'd notice it. But I really think that's one of the true superpowers of a great editor, is just knowing how to cast books like that. So it's been fun. Fun.
I'm looking at one panel for the Cull, and you saying that, and I'm having a really tough time trying to figure out how Meredith would, especially if we're talking about the scene settings and how everything would be the same, or if Meredith would take the art or take the panel description and do it in her way. But the detail in the Cull is striking, and Meredith, the expressions are there on the characters' faces and whatnot, but some of there may be some detail lost, but her color makes up for that, obviously. But she would just approach it completely different. Yes.
I'm sure she would lay it out differently too. I mean, Mattia, you guys will see when you read the Cull. I mean, Mattia basically all the panels are basically like widescreen horizontals, like, except for when it like expands out to be a double page spread or something. And because it gives it this very cinematic feel, but like Meredith would never do that or want to do that, you know. So it's just interesting. But like when Mattia did a couple covers for us for Black Cloak, he did one for issue 3, you know, and it like blew Meredith's and my mind to see him drawing this Rena character that we liked so much in this like hyper realistic style, and it made me want to see him take on all the Black Cloak characters and see what he'd do with them. But then it made me think about what Meredith would do, you know, with his monsters and with his, you know, with his teens that we're dealing with. And I just think it's an interesting thought experiment that really crystallizes how much the artist brings to the project. I mean, it's like a totally different animal once you change that, you know, without changing anything else. And it's beautiful. Comics are amazing.
Truly.
Yeah, you worked with Matt. I think you first worked with Mattia on what was it, the Jessica Jones, right? Is that where you two? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think that was his first thing for Marvel too. He might have done some covers before that, but I think that was his first sequential art was on that, and he did an amazing job on that.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you had me at Goonies with the solicit, right? It's like as a child of the 80s, it was like, okay, all right, I'm here for this.
Yeah.
So, Do you all write the like the image? Because like I'm always one of the fun. Like I have such fun. I do a monthly video going through the previews and DC Connect catalogs for our patrons. You know, just talking about the things that I think are worth their attention. And one of my favorite things is the image elevator pitch, because it's always like, if you like this thing and this thing, well, then this comic is for you. And I just think it's, I don't know if there's a specific person or if that's left up to you all, because like it's like, first of all, like half of them admittedly always seemingly compare them, like it gets compared to Saga, right? Like
I know,
if you like Saga and something, it's like, but then, you know, I think for the call, at least on the website, it said if you like Something Is Killing the Children and the Goonies. And I love both of those things, so I'm like, okay, like and I like Kelly's work, like I'm here for it. But I just think it's funny, like who gets to pick that? Like, is that a you thing, or is that like someone at Image?
You have to pick it, but they make you pick it. I mean,
oh, I see. Okay,
they want you to be able to list comparables, which I find very difficult.
Right? Yeah.
Especially because I happen to think Black Cloak is similar to Saga in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even if I'm right, it's absurd to compare yourself to Saga. It's so ridiculous.
Well, right. I mean, I think
it's like one of the best, biggest, longest, most popular running books, and you're like, hey, we're just like, no, nobody's like that. Nobody's like that. We were just in trouble. We ended up with Monstrous and Saga as our two comparables that they asked for. And even Monstrous, I don't feel like we're anything like Monstrous, but there are some feminist messaging.
Sure.
It's made by women. The style is atypical maybe for what you're seeing. It does deal with like monsters and creatures and stuff, and like sort of fantasy and mythology ideas and magic. And so like I'm like, okay, I guess that. And they're like, oh yeah, we like that comparison. I'm like, okay, great. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But like it's very hard. I think you were asking, do I write the solicits? Do writers write the solicits? I've found sort of two schools of thought. I've never met anyone who likes doing them. Mm-hmm. So I've found there are people that won't do them because they don't like doing them, and people who don't like doing them but won't let anyone else do them because to be right. I am in that camp. Okay. I hate doing them, but I mostly do them because I want them to be what I want them to be. And
that's fair.
I think good editors at places like Marvel and DC, they might write a draft for you because they know you're a pain in the ass who won't get back to them on time, and so they try to help you by writing a draft, and then it's easier for you to go in and edit that and be like, okay, maybe this though, you know, and then you sort of meet in the middle. I had that a lot with Sarah. Like Sarah and I got in a very good groove because we did so much Captain Marvel together, and we were also doing Black Widow. She got very good at writing them, and I would have very few tweaks. Ben is very nice. I think there are some editors that don't even ask. I think any editor that works with me knows they should ask, which says something terrible about me, but they do ask me, so they must know. They must just sense it in me. But I wrote them for Black Cloak at Image and for The Cull, and I decided to do them weird. We started out normal for like the series premiere, whatever, but then I was like, nah. I was like, nobody pays attention to these, really? And I feel like doing weird ones that are like Hungry Mermaids, Murdered Prince, like I feel like that stands out more. For like sure. It might make you go, oh, well, what's that? You know, and like, so I figured, I don't know, it can't hurt. It's like if someone's reading them, then probably they're excited by something that breaks the pattern, right? I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah, well, listen, I'm living proof that some people do pay attention to them. So, to create content.
It's sort of writing weird ones. You'll have to tell me, since you're someone who reads them. You should ping me when you like one or hate one.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, as you probably know, I mean, it's like because probably like you said, it is like after a while you're like, oh, enough of this already. Like I think the Saga ones crack me up because they're just like they don't really exist now. Like it's just basically like one word.
Yeah,
like BKV just does like one word now because I guess at this point he's like, listen, I know you're all going to buy this book anyway, so I don't really need it.
Well, I think I was talking to Matt Rosenberg and Ed, I think, about I was like, some of my favorite write-ups from TV are like once they're in it and they know that really there's diehard fans and nobody else, like, and they just start writing weird ones like Quentin eats an apple and Billy bumps his head or whatever. Like, I like those and I find them funny. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to pretend Black Cloak is wildly successful and that this is what people want. And I'm just going to write them like that. So...
Yeah, no, keep that up. I like that. I mean, they do stand out because, like, inevitably, it's like it's very. I mean, especially at the big two, right? Like, it's very formulaic, and I understand it has to be, but it just, you just kind of like, okay, I get it, and then you move on.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you're like, wait, I don't have to do this like that anymore. Okay,
right.
Yeah, let me take that freedom and run with it because that one feels good.
Yeah, I think, I know you wrote for CBR for a bunch of time before you jumped into the writing. So, you've had your experiences of like reviewing or talking about the comic industry before you actually made comics. So, like, one of the things we talk about on the show, because again, we're going on, 900 episodes, 15 years, is that there are these certain comics that hit this point in their existence where they've been so good for so long that they almost fall out of the narrative because there's not, like, you don't really have anything more to say about it without being just like spoiling the plot. And Saga's at that point, right? Like, we never talk about Saga on the show, not because it isn't still one of the best books, but just because it is one of the best books. And like, unless we want to spoil the plot, there's nothing really more to say on it.
Before that, it was The Walking Dead.
I was going to say The Walking Dead was like that, or Fables. Those were books that, like, everybody read them and they all thought they were great each issue, but they'd gone on for so long and were so great that you were just like, oh yeah, it's another great issue. I don't know what more to say. If you're not into it by now, you're probably not going to be into it. So.
Yeah, I think you're right, but also it feels a little like we're taking that for granted, aren't we? I mean,
100%. We often lament it. We lament it, right? We're like, and we do like a year interview, and sometimes that'll happen where I'll look at like my reading list for the year and the things I thought were the best, and I'll think, oh man, like I didn't even talk about that book because they just like assume everyone knows it's great,
Yeah.
So.
It feels, it does feel like something shocking really has to happen later in a run to like make people talk about it again. But like, you just want to tell the story that you're trying to tell. You don't want to like shock and awe just to make people pay attention. But I do think that I saw quite a number of people, a lot of people said really lovely things about Captain Marvel when it finished, but I kept running into these people saying, I've been saying for years it was the most consistent book at Marvel, month in and month out, and this was my best read every month, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to be like, I love you guys, and I know some of you that were there banging the drum, but like, it would have been nice to feel that more because you do get in and I get it. I did the reviewing thing. I know how relentless it is and how unrewarding it can be, and it's never ending. But I mean, it was frustrating to get in your 40s of your number and suddenly people just aren't reviewing the book as much. People aren't talking about it. You have to do something really dramatic in order to like get attention back. I mean, that was one of the ways in which having to reinvent the wheel every time for us helped a little bit, because at least we had to be like, oh, she's got a new costume because she's doing magic, or whatever. And like sometimes that would be enough to like get us, a relook, and people would be like, oh, okay, what's going on over there? But it's frustrating that you have to fight so hard with it for something that people mostly already like, but there's just a glut of so much out there that we already like, and there's only so much money and there's only so much time, and you're fighting against all those other great things that you also like, for somebody's attention.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing for us. I mean, we obviously spend a lot of time in like celebrating comics, and our typical episodes are 2.5, 3 hours long, believe it or not. So I mean, we've spent many, literally thousands of hours giving love to the things we like. But even with that, I mean, it's just inevitably, to your point, like we feel like if we've waxed lovingly about something a month before, it just feels almost like just talk about it again. It just feels like we'd rather bring light to something else to a group of listeners that maybe they're not aware of, because hopefully they already listened to us the last time we talked about the book. But you're right. I mean, but certainly when nothing is perfect, and so we do occasionally look back and be like, oh man, we really haven't talked about that enough, even though we adore it. Like that's like we are, the three of us are all, I mean, a lot of times we all like similar things, but we also have lots of things that maybe don't fit in with each other's concentric circles. But like the Brubaker Phillips Reckless novels, we all have adored, so we've talked about them a lot. And I think but like once you get to the the fifth one, it's like even we who I think we're pretty good at pontificating about the things we enjoy, but there's only so much to say. I mean, I feel like we've spent hours talking about it, so it's not that it's lost its quality or we're not as thrilled to have read the fifth volume as the first, but at the end of the day, I don't know what more we can bring to it, because again, if someone hasn't tried them by that point, they just probably aren't going to try them, at least based on our recommendation.
Yeah.
And what else might we be not ignoring but not talking about? Because it's not like Ed and Sean need our accolades to sell more books.
Sure.
But then that week Black Cloak might come out, and that's something that warrants eyeballs on it. So it is and when you talk about the fans or the readers talking about or lamenting over the fact that there was a change or a book was canceled, there's a very vocal minority, obviously online, but I keep thinking back to the days when Ron Marz took over Green Lantern and how everybody went apeshit when Hal Jordan went crazy and they introduced Kyle Rayner. And it's like, if all of you people who are so irate and outraged over this change, if the same amount of people were actually buying the book when Hal Jordan was in it, we wouldn't have made the change.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Kelly, what I guess everything else that we haven't talked about, you probably can't talk about, because otherwise we would have talked about it.
I've got 2 pitches on the verge of going in. I've got the Birds of Prey. Obviously, we're running full speed on that. We're going to be doing this new season or continuing season of Black Cloak. The Cull is an interesting thing we can't really talk about yet. It's a 5-issue miniseries to start.
Okay.
It's definitely not going to be continuing the way Black Cloak does, but if we're very popular, which I'm hoping for, I think that's going to give us different options for how we want to approach what's next for the book. There's definitely a what's next for the book. The question is how we fit it together with Mattia's schedule and everything. He still has commitments he has to meet, and also and I'm sure he would be the first to admit this, that digital painting style is no bullshit. It takes a really long time to do that quality of work. So, even if he was ready to start on the Cull Volume 2 immediately, it wouldn't be out for a while. So, but the nature of the story gives us some options that we're exploring. So that's a pin sort of in that. And then I'm also doing some very interesting stuff, I hope, with Story Killer, my novel that I kickstarted nearly 10 years ago now. And I'm looking at pursuing some stuff with that on Substack with a sort of serial reading, more of a prose capacity, although there will probably be spot illustrations because I can't help myself. So something like that too, and then also maybe this Taka in-world Black Cloak strip.
Nice.
I don't know. So we'll see. I'm also doing a new It's Jeff with Guri Hiru for season 3, and I believe the plan is for that to launch in the fall again. So
that's fun.
How much fun is it to work with them?
Oh, they're amazing. It's amazing I can come out here and complain about anything. I've been so dark and negative for this whole episode, but I'm working with Mattia Julius, Meredith McLaren, Leonardo Romero, and Jordi Belair, and Guri Hiru. It's like a smorgasbord of talent. It's incredible.
Yeah, we should all be someone happy.
Yeah, right? I know, right? How dare I? They're incredible. They're masterful storytellers. I don't even know how they make everything so freaking cute. But they're a delight. They bring so much joy to things. Yeah. They have great ideas. My job on It's Jeff is really just to find a great joke and set it up for them to execute it. And They do it every time. Even ones where I turn them in and I'm like, it's okay. This is not my favorite one. Sometimes when I get it back, I'm like, wait, it's the best one? They made it the best one. How did they do it? They're just great.
You're not now is I'm trying to ask this without you're not making your own little Kelly Thompson, Mark Miller universe with Black Cloak and the club, right? These are separate entities, or do we all have to follow everything you're going to be doing because there's going to be one big super
the
crossover?
Thompson verse is what you're
yes, yeah.
No, I mean nobody's even dreamed of giving me the kind of money I need to do that. I mean,
you got no Netflix deals banging on the door?
I'd love to start the Thompson verse, but we're going to need a lot more money to do that. But yeah, I mean, I do want to certainly build that kind of stuff. I mean, the number of times creatives talk about, hey, maybe we should build a shared universe together. Maybe we could do it. Like, you would not believe how many of those half-started conversations there are, because everyone would love to do it, but it's a huge time commitment. It's a huge risk. You usually have to, I think most people would have to throw in money for something like that. Mm-hmm. And, it's nobody's delusional that we're living in the 90s anymore. I mean, the comics market is just completely different. There's no space to have a new, image boom. And for people who don't know what I mean, who are young enough that just know the image of today, I mean, that started as a very different kind of entity.
Yes.
So, but I don't know that exists, and I think that's the thing that stops those conversations when they get started now, even though creators would love to jam together on weird crap like that and create, their own universes with their own... But it's just hard, man. It's a lot. And comics, comics sometimes gets money injected into it, but Substack's one of the only times I've seen it go directly to the creators. So
right, for sure.
Yeah,
it's hard.
I have to say, this is going to seem random, and maybe you don't even I don't know how much you're aware of this, but there is a Marvel mobile game called Marvel Snap.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think David, you've played it much, but I play it a lot, probably more than I should. And as you maybe know, if you know the game, Kelly, but I think it's Jeff the Land Shark is one of the better cards in the game. So I was like, and I think that's so cool, right? Because obviously, just with the movies and with the video game, I'm sure lots of people are playing the video game that aren't deeply embedded in Marvel Comics lore. And so when you get these relatively lesser known characters that come into the game and they have crazy utility, I think it's always fun. So I would say Jeff is probably one of the most used cards in the game, and the game has hundreds of cards. So there you go.
I play.
Okay, cool. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I play. I'm having very good luck with my build deck right now. Which
nice.
Is nice. I basically tap out at a certain level in Marvel Snap because I just don't want to play really dirty.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to put a Wong on a double thing and then a Mystique and then a Gambit so that it destroys.
That's the go-to move.
My opponent's 8 cards. I have no interest in that.
Sure.
And honestly, when people play like that against me, I put them on a list. I don't play with them anymore.
Oh, nice.
I do. I have a list that's got a ton of people on it. But
I hope I'm not on the list.
The thing, I can check the list. Do you want to tell me? Why don't you put in the little chat what your little name is? The biggest thing I don't play someone again though is not really if they're playing dirty. And it's not it's not that you can't play Gambit. Of course you can play Gambit. I just if someone's playing all destructive cards or all disruptive cards, I just don't like it. I want to build. I want to build my side and you build your side and let's see who can do it better.
Sure.
Yes, I'll defend myself if you force me to, but I really won't attack you. I'm just not into it. I'm a builder, not a destroyer, man. I don't know. Even when I play a destroyer deck, it's all destroy my own cards.
Right, yeah.
I don't want to destroy yours.
Well, the newest card, Spider-Ham, is quite controversial for that same reason. Some people hate it.
Spider-Ham.
Do you? I'm a big fan of it.
I haven't gotten him yet.
I can tell already you're on my list, Jason.
Dag nabbit. That's a bummer. I don't really like. Honestly, I don't like those damnation decks like you're talking about. To me, the almost insta quit for me was when before Galactus got nerfed. I was like, oh, you're gonna play Galactus. I'm just gonna quit. Like I was like, you get take your cube. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why would anyone stay in when someone plays Galactus? Like, except for the occasional time when you can turn it around on them. That does feel fucking.
Oh, for sure.
But,
Yeah.
Anyway, I just I love the game. I think it's very fun, but there's sort of a natural limit to how high I can go because I just sort of don't want to. I'm never going to put Shang-Chi in my deck. I'm just not. I don't like it. I don't like destroying the other cards. I don't have a fun time with it, and I don't like playing with people. But what I was trying to say is the only people that really for sure go on the list are the people who are not good sports. The people who want to spam you with, like, if they think they're winning, if they're doing well, and they're like, I'm losing.
Oh, yeah.
Snap. Like, I have no tolerance for that. I will exit the game. I will put you on a list, and next time I see you, I will immediately exit.
The I'm losing is also an instant quit for me, unless I'm like for sure gonna I'm gonna win this anyway, because it's like, just to your point, it's annoying, and it's like, all right, you're telling me I'm losing because you want me to like snap into you.
Yeah,
like, we all know that's happening. So you're either 4 years old or you're just annoying, right? Like you like
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the cool thing about the game, though, is that it's like the thing I like about that game, because I used to play this other Marvel game, and it was like a time and money suck. And I woke up one day and thought, why am I doing this? Like, this feels like a job now. Like, and that's absurd.
Yeah.
Why should I? But the thing I like about Snap is it's so casual. It can be whatever you want, and you don't really have to spend any money, and you can still be competitive, which is great because it's strategy. Like, you don't need to, buy the hot cards which I love. I mean, I think with all games, like, naturally over time that will change. Like, right, like as the game plateaus, the publishers will start increasing the pay to play mechanic to try and suck the profit out of those that are addicted to it. But like for now, it's super fun. And like you said, like the thing I love about it, and I guess this is true of many card games, but I wasn't really much of like a Magic player, but like just the ability to like have fun and create different decks and see what works. And that's super fun. And then all these characters that I love so much and all the variants and stuff, it's just a blast.
I think it's the characters, man. It's just, like I never really got into D&D or Pokemon or whatever. And like, I understand the appeal of all those things because I overlap with a lot of nerd culture. I get it. It just they just weren't things that necessarily clicked on for me. But playing X-Men, I mean, literally my brother and I invented basically this game when we were little. We were playing it with our Gimli X-Men cards. I've been doing it on my Substack a little bit. We would just play war. We would just play regular war. But we were so in sync at that time about who the characters were that we loved so much and were reading and watching on the animated show, cartoon and everything, that it was easy for us to agree on what their power levels are, which, is impossible. It's impossible to play with people who wouldn't agree on that. It would be a nightmare. But because we were so in sync, so we agree so-and-so's more power than so-and-so. So there are very few arguments. But yeah, we would basically play war with those Gimli cards. I still have them today. They're incredibly worn from playing war with them all the time, especially on card trips. And so to me, Marvel Snap is just like a far more complicated, super interesting version of that with like incredible art. Like, it's so fun. And that's the real thing that the only thing I don't like about the game, you can't exit out of it because it's also a great thing about the game, which is all the variants. I am a sucker, like a good one. If I don't like the art on a certain card, I will like wait and spend gold on a replacement card because I just don't want to look at it anymore. And that's genius for them. For people who want to make money, genius.
Absolutely,
I wish they would make it a little more reasonable. Like 1,200 gold for some of these cards. Come on, man. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Again, these games are very, I mean, all of these mobile games are very predatory financially, so that's why I say, like, but I'm with you. I mean, I think at least for this one, I haven't had to spend much at all and still gotten great enjoyment from it. So, it's really fun.
Especially if you spend a little money up front just to like get yourself started, I think.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you're right. You can totally play it just by winning points and building it slowly, and it's great. It's great. Well, when we get off, you should definitely text me your name so I can verify you're not on my list.
I'll feel awful if I am. I'm so bad.
Promise. If you are on the list, I'll take you off and give you.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, that's your second
How
shot.
about that?
I
Yeah.
love it. Nice. All right, great.
'Cause
Well, on that
I have
note,
to admit, sometimes people make it on the list when I'm just really mad that day. So it's happened. I try to make a rule that like they have to use like 3 or more like really aggressive cards against me before I'll whatever. But maybe you just use 2 really aggressive cards one day, and I was mad. So
yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm not generally that kind of player, but like with everything, I think like especially if you're doing terribly for a while, like I've tried different decks. Or like I'll see a YouTube video where they're like, oh, you got to try this deck, and I'll try it. And sometimes like because you just don't know the mechanics well, you're like, this deck stinks. I don't know what they're talking about. But or other times you're like, oh, this is great. But I've never. I'm not generally one. Like I definitely. I mean, nothing is more defeating than like when you get like Enchantress and then Professor X and then like Gambited, and you're like, oh man, like
yeah, and then like.
All right.
But the new one that's been happening to me a lot, I really have no affection for or tolerance for, which is like they put a goose on something so that you can only use a couple cards there.
Sure.
And then they put a Professor X on something, and then they put a Spider-Man on something. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
you're so afraid of my cards. I can't play any cards. Like, I mean, I just exit then. Because, like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
So-
Why would I
so-
stay in this? You're not letting me play. Like,
100%. My username is Woodrow. It's very simple. So.
oh, you're
it's-
you're definitely not on there. I have
nice. All right. Good. There we go.
I might
I feel redeemed.
I might have played you though, but you're definitely not on the list.
Nice. All right. That's good. Excellent. Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming on. I genuinely do hope that the experience of branching out this year and into next year is like just wildly successful and also creatively fulfilling, right? Like, I mean, that's obviously like a part of this is having fun and enjoying being creative. And
Listen, it's been great. I feel bad this was a negative. It was a really
It
hard
was not.
week. It
It
was
was
a
not.
really
It
hard
wasn't
week
negative.
in the world, and honestly, it's been a really hard little while for artists and writers and
yeah,
stuff.
for sure.
So
For sure.
it's been hard, but you're right that a lot of really exciting stuff is happening. I'm working with people. I literally wrote an email about cackling about art that was coming in my box. I just wrote a tweet the other something on a non-Twitter, whatever. I was on Blue Sky, I think, where I was talking about like these artists who are creating for our projects. It's an embarrassment of riches. They're so talented, and I'm so lucky.
Awesome.
So,
Well,
great-
maybe
it's a great
hopefully we'll get you another Eisner soon for one of these projects.
I mean, please.
It'll be well deserved.
Let's do that.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. We really do appreciate it,
Yeah,
and we wish
thanks
you well.
for
So,
having
yeah,
It
absolutely.
won't.
guys,
It
take
won't. Let's not have such a delay next time.
Yeah, let's not make it 4 years
Yes.
next time.
Sounds good. Maybe after Birds of Prey is out, if you guys want to
Yeah,
tell you try that first issue and you let me know if it was any good.
will do. Fantastic. Well, have a great night. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Kelly. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye. That was awesome.
Absolutely. There you have it. The definitive Kelly Thompson interview.
That's right. Got that big 2 talk without Vince.
That's right. I mean, I don't think Vince wouldn't have stood for the Jim Balint assassination. So,
Oh man. Anything else?
I mean, like, I don't have anything specific. I will say that I'm getting a little verklempt here because I realize I'm not going to be talking to you or these fabulous people on air until mid-July, which is crazy. Because I leave on Sunday and be gone in the Italy for 2 weeks. So, but I am going to try and at least in as much as the wifey will allow it, given the time zone changes, at night maybe pop into the Slack and maybe do a couple patron posts of some Italy scenes and sights. And I'm really, really hoping when I'm in Florence in particular that I can hit up some fumetti stores and see what's what.
Awesome.
Get some European comic up in these veins. But yeah, man. How about you? I mean, you got anything you wanna shout out before we do our In Your Travels?
I want to shout out Tim and Kevin and Hassan and everybody else who checked in for during Heroes Con weekend. But I received a box yesterday because first of all, it's insane sometimes being online. I was I was scrolling through Mastodon, and somebody had posted some pins that some Star Trek pins that they picked up at the convention, and I asked for the artist or which table, what booth are they from, because we have some friends down there this weekend, and I'm gonna see if I can maybe score some. So my man sent me a photo of Homeboy's business card and showed me the pins that he had picked up. And so I mentioned on the Slack, if anybody's around this guy's table, let me know what pins he may have based on my interest, and let me know what they're charging. And so the exchange back and forth on Mastodon, and when I wrote back and I thanked the guy for giving me the info, his next reply was, "I just realized who you are. I love your podcast. Thanks for doing what you do." Completely random, out of the blue. The guy's name is Ash, so shout out to Ash. But then I received a box yesterday from Tim, from FedEx, from the convention center, with the pins and some issues of Strip from the UK, which I cannot wait to start reading, and a 007 magazine, which just completely blew my mind. So massive shout out to Tim. Hassan found a comic I was looking for, and more on that later. But it looks like everybody who was there in Charlotte had a blast at Heroes Con this weekend, which I was so glad to see. Yeah, it sucks that we weren't there this year, but I'm so glad that everybody still had a great time.
Yeah, I mean, ditto on that. I have to say, it really did. I definitely was feeling some kind of way not being there. It is. I think collectively our favorite con, in no small part because it's just a great time to see so many of our friends. But it really genuinely was much easier to handle with how active our Slack channel was with the booths sharing their art that they were buying, the comics they were buying, the meals they were having together. It really did. It certainly wasn't like we were there, but I really appreciated the connectivity and the purpose with which they kept us apprised of things going on, and it really meant a lot. So, I mean, Kevin Quast was like the photo documenter of the entire thing.
Jimmy
like,
Olsen over here.
And Raj was out there getting his hustle on. I mean, Meekin celebrating his career change. Dude bought half of Artist Alley up. It was pretty awesome to see everybody having fun, and and of course Newbury always checking in. Like everybody was really there were dozens of people posting updates, and I really genuinely appreciated it. It was cool to see, and if anything, it just made me absolutely. I'm already salivating for us to get back there next year and do it up right.
100%.
Hopefully, we'll get a big crew to represent. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, and I do. Since I want to shout out our boys Cliff and Justin, because of course they were there, and I since we weren't there, Jim Rugg has a new zine that he made up, and it's a limited print run. And normally I would always grab that and whatever else looked good over at the sort of, they always have that the Rugg
Ad House area a little there.
Yeah, Ad House sort of Pitzer area, and so Cliff and Justin did me right, and they picked up a copy of the zine, so I much appreciated that. That was awesome. Can't wait to get that. So, and then also have a shout out to Jason Youngbluth of Weapon Brown fame, because last year he ran a Kickstarter for Weapon Brown Aftershock, which is the sequel and the Little Red edition. And I received my care package today. Not my care package, listen to me. I received my Kickstarter fulfillment today, and he did me right. I backed the tier where you get the book, you also get some ephemera, and then I also got I backed the tier where I get a page of the artwork. So I got in my box today, I got a page of the art from the new sequel, obviously the sequel itself, which I can't wait to read, a bunch of buttons and stickers. Also included was a custom sketch, and in classic, I mean, this is so fitting, I love it. He asked me who I would like, and I said, how about you do something on of Hank McCoy Beast? And I'll of course put this on calf, but he drew a fully colored blue Hank McCoy Beast Cookie Monster. So Cookie Monster as the Beast, which I just think is brilliant and
hilarious.
Perfect with his whole vibe of transmogrifying classic characters from our youth into these other forms. So that was awesome. And then he threw in a bunch of like other books and art books, including, which I didn't even know existed, an art book of naughty drawings. So like I feel very I feel very lucky to have gotten that loot package from him. So so props from another member of the Nation of Jasons.
That's awesome.
That's right. So do you have it in your travels? Yes, no?
Yeah, I
Because we're going to get yelled at if we don't do that.
Yeah, that's
we're
true.
Yelled at if we don't.
You're right. You're right. I read the first issue of the new Black Panther.
Oh yeah, with Chris Allen on art.
Yeah, the art's fantastic. It's written by Eve L. Ewing, Chris Allen on pencils, Allen and Craig Young on inks, and Jesus Abertov on colors. And there's a slight mention of being an Avenger. So this is current and ties in with McKay's Avengers run. But T'Challa is basically, I'm not gonna say he's a man without a country. He's not necessarily royalty. Wakanda's had some changes recently, and this is what I'm loving so far about this one issue, especially these first few pages. When I watched Wakanda Forever, when I left the theater, the people I was with, all I wanted when we walk into the parking lot, all I said is, I want a Disney Plus series about the cities in Wakanda. Because I don't need a detective show. I just want maybe a day in the life, an anthology of just different residents in these cities. And because the architecture, the layout where these people live, it's beautiful. I love the way it looks, and we're getting so much of that in this issue, and it almost became the story itself. Whatever T'Challa was doing, whatever he was going up against, it was almost like it was background noise. I was just so focused on what Alan was drawing on these pages as far as making this city feel alive. I'm absolutely here for it. I love Black Panther's slightly tweaked look for this book. It's a little different. It's different than what Priest was doing. It's different than what Hudlin and what Aaron did. I think Eve is going to take the character and this world in a slightly different direction, and I'm not mad about it. It's kind of it's got a little bit of the political and of the everyman and just other people struggling in this very culturally rich and technologically advanced nation, and I'm kind of stoked for it, and yeah, the art's fantastic, but I'm as like pretty much halfway through the issue, I was kind of just completely enamored by it. I have high hopes for where we're going from here, but I'm seriously looking forward to it. So if you're kind of like first issued out, if you've you finished a previous Panther run or runs and you need a break or whatever, I would maybe say pause on that, give this first issue a shot and see how you feel about it. But yeah, I absolutely was blown away by it. So Black Panther #1 by Ewing and Allen and Jung and Abertov, and that's my new travels for this week.
Nice, yeah. It's on my to-do list here. I have it, but I haven't read it yet. Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, in your travels, this is a book that I think was originally announced back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and it took a long ass time to get 3 issues done. But boy, did they get them done! And that is Wonder Woman Historia, the Amazons.
The third issue is out.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it is okay.
I got the hardcover. So I'm holding the hardcover here, and it is an absolute stunner. This is Black Label, and the reason I remember it was 2018 is because it was one of the first things announced when Black Label was announced. It was like part of the hey, here's what we're going to be doing with Black Label, which is like, but then the first issue didn't come out for for almost 4 years, and I'm not sure why. Like, I don't know if it was just like, I don't know if like the movies changed. Like, I have no idea. Maybe one of our listeners maybe knows. I don't know why it took as long as it did. I'd almost, like, before it finally did come out, I'd almost forgotten that it was ever supposed to come out. But point being, this was a 3-issue series, and there is going to be more. I don't know when we're going to get more, but I know after the first issue, some of the ardent Wonder Woman fans in our crew talked it up, and I made a mental note. And one of the reasons I didn't jump on this in issue form is because I assumed, even though it was a Black Label, but I assumed it was a Wonder Woman origin story, and I felt like I had already read Wonder Woman origin stories. There was obviously Gods and Mortals, Perez's run, and then Rucka did Wonder Woman Year One not too long ago, maybe like a decade ago. So it's like I felt like, okay, I've seen this already, and then we had the film, which does her origin story. So I'm like, I don't know, like, do I really need to read another Wonder Woman origin story? But I'm an idiot, because the answer was yes. Yes, I do. I should have said this is written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, and it's art. It's a rotating art team: Phil Jimenez, Gene Ha, and Nicholas Scott. Now, for those of you that pay attention to the Eisners as I do, you might know already that the first issue of this won 2 Eisners, one for best single issue, and Phil Jimenez won for best artist that year for it. So I will say that it is an absolute visual stunner. I mean, I can see why this book took a long ass time to draw and finish. Every page is just like overwhelmingly detailed and intricate and well rendered and colored, and it's like gobsmackingly beautifully drawn. The hardcover is a beautiful way to present it because of that, and I have to say that even though it is an origin story, I think it does a nice job of living up to the potential of being a Black Label book, meaning that, I mean, it's out of quote unquote continuity, and it's also you have more leeway for adult concepts and themes and visuals, and they make use of all that in this. And I think Kelly Sue DeConnick does an incredible job. I don't feel like I've read many comics from her in the last bunch of years. Like, I feel like she hasn't been as active in comics either as her husband, now that I think about it. But in the last bunch of years, and I had kind of forgotten that she's a really great writer. I definitely enjoyed most of the stuff, if not all of it, that I read back when she was doing comics more regularly, but I had kind of just almost forgotten about what a good writer she is when she's got a project she's passionate about. And this is just top-notch stuff. I would say that certainly anyone that's a Wonder Woman fan probably already has read this or plans on it, so I don't need to recommend it to them. But I would say to people that don't necessarily hold Wonder Woman in your must-read category, and I would put myself there, this is absolutely worth your time. It is great. It is absolutely a phenomenal work, and I want to acknowledge it, and also acknowledge those of you out there listening to this podcast that are like, I told you so, Wood. You did tell me so. So there you go. So yes, in your travels, Wonder Woman Historia, the Amazons. And if you haven't bought it already, buy the hardcover, because the hardcover is nice. The
hardcover is now on my wish list on Cheap Graphic Novels, who happens to be our sponsor.
Sir. Nice.
And I will try to say something smart when I do the beginning of this episode tomorrow regarding
nice.
Sponsor.
And since you're jury rigging that, I will say I was drinking G0 tonight. I was drinking Glacier Cherry G0 for the record, because some of you also get very verklempt when we don't do the drink roll call.
Yeah.
So.
Purposely, I did not. I avoided the drink roll call because I'm not sure. I didn't want to put Kelly on the spot, and And I finished the last few sips of rye that I had in my glass, and it's just been water all night. So
nice. Yeah, I have just routine blood work tomorrow for a physical. I have a physical coming up. So, I'm in the fasting. I'm not trying to do the caffeine or the alcohol leading up to the blood work, so that it doesn't.
The caffeine's the toughest.
Yeah, I would normally drink coffee at like midnight. I just can't do that tonight. That's all. And I'll be like I'll be mainlining it into my veins at 9 o'clock on the drive home from LabCorp. So
awesome! Oh, this is a blast.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, well, I guess funny is not the word, but I feel like writers, a lot of comic writers are tortured, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like they are overly critical of their own moods, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like Kelly was very apologetic on the show about like being in a down mood, right? And like
which didn't come across at all, but yeah.
Yeah, we've had many writers on the show over the years that have had that same like apologetic vibe. Like, oh, you know. And sometimes they might not say it on the like during the show like Kelly did, but like and we're wrapping up like, oh man, sorry I was such a downer tonight. And it's like, what? Like no, like you know, you writers are inherently super, I think most of them are incredibly analytical and they let ideas permeate in their heads. So it just makes sense that they are going to be affected and impacted by both the good and the bad that's out there into the world, right? I mean,
they're staring at a screen all day, blank pages, like she said. That first blank page is one of the scariest things, and it's so they're just, unless they have pets or studio mate, there really isn't anything. It's just the sound of their own voice in their own head. So
I almost made a joke about how she should just let ChatGPT write her solicits from now on, but then I thought might not go because she's clearly feeling some kind of way about AI.
Yeah, she is, especially considering the artist she's working with. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's you know it's interesting. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but I know I posted in the Slack that there's been some consternation about Secret Invasion and the opening credits were created by AI, and you know I mean I'm such a fan and lover of comic art that I definitely understand the frustration.
Yep.
But I do stop short of being angry about it in the sense that like, you know, production art for something like a film or a TV show is already often done digitally or using CGI.
Yes, and
right. So
my thinking especially for something like Secret Invasion, I almost feel like it's kind of fitting because this is a show about imposters. So why would you not have opening credits done by something that isn't human?
Yeah. I mean, that's my thing. Like, and again, I don't really know the full story, but I did see a few people that seem to have a really like strong take on it online, talking about how like we should probably just pick our fights a little bit better in the sense that like this one in particular. I mean, Marvel has always used different studios to do their intro production, so it's not even like a Marvel decision. Like they hire out, and then again, it's like in this case, it's just another tool. It really isn't any different than using, you know, animation tools or CGI engines to render the stuff. I mean, it's not like it was hand drawn. It's supposed to be hand drawn, and then you know what I mean. So, like, but I get it. I think what it does, it just shines a light on how incredibly nervous creatives are about this stuff, and I do feel for them on that because, you know, I've told you. I mean, I think people can't overstate the impact that AI is going to have on the world, like for good and bad. I mean, let me be clear. I think there's going to be a lot of bad from it, but I also think there's going to be a lot of good from it. And there's going to be a lot of change that some will think is good and some will think is bad, depending on your vantage. But I think for sure it's going to change a lot. And I do think that there will be jobs or processes that very much do get assailed from this. I mean, and really in every industry, I as you know, I was at a work retreat for much of this week, and one of our team, well, our lawyer was there. He doesn't work for us, but he's a partner at a law firm, but he's our lawyer, and he was part of this. And I was like just asking him about AI, and he said it's already wildly important and useful in their field because so much of their field is looking up casework and precedent and just raw like researching, like existing information to make sure that they understand the legal precedent and the case that they're making. And he said it's just an incredibly helpful and time-saving tool already. You know, it's just another evolution of like doing a LexisNexis query, right? Or or like if you and another person that was there that's on our advisory board is the head of a creative agency. They're marketing and branding, and they're a team of 32 creatives that are very much human and very much are in the business of using their talents and don't have any intention of firing anyone on their team from AI. So they're looking again as like a tool. Like they're finding really unique ways to help them just expedite and optimize their process. But like it's not like they're anyone's losing their jobs over it. They're just doing their jobs more efficiently, you know, and able to do more with their time, able to take on more accounts, but like still really do a good job. So like, again, like I don't want this to come off like I'm telling people that are scared to not be scared, because like I think anyone should be mindful of their of the, you know, the delicateness of your career. Like I'm all for people like being eyes wide open with it, but I think we just need to do a better job of like picking our battles. You know, like I think AI as a threat to creatives is worth being upset about and like really making sure we protect them. I think like losing your mind over the Secret Invasion creation, which would have been CGI anyway, being like something that, you know, because like, and the reason I brought it up is because like it's like AI is a problem if like there's no human involved, right? And it's just literally taking the job away. That's not what happened with the Secret Invasion thing. A team of highly paid graphic designers at a creative agency that Disney hired to make that trailer used an AI engine in their process as humans to help build this thing. Like it was humans directing the AI to make this thing.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems different to me.
Yep.
Like that doesn't seem like any different than digital comics and using like if humans are ultimately saying, okay, make this and then let me see if I like it. Now one might argue, okay, yeah, but in the past they would have used 4 different human artists to draw that stuff. Okay, maybe like, and I'm open to hearing that argument, but like, I don't know, man, it just seems like there's so many legit like big issues to get upset about. Like maybe we need to just like chill out on the very little things, you know?
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's, I mean, when you think about all the different looks, the look of the different Marvel shows we've had so far. I mean, the credits for Secret Invasion look a lot different than that from Miss Marvel, than that from Moon Knight, than that from Hawkeye. And I mean, hell, Kagan McLeod did the credits scenes for She-Hulk. So I mean, you've had things that were hand drawn, you've had things that were computer generated, you have things that were digitally so it's not like they're just doing one sort of like flat style for every single show. Every show is unique and different and has credit scenes to complement that. And it's, you know, we'll see what happens with the next show after the Marvel's movie. So I can understand, you know, people maybe being a little upset at first, or a knee-jerk reaction would be, you know, this is just more bullshit and they're taking the jobs. But it just, you have to exhale, step back, and look at the bigger picture. And like you said, and just and to pick battles that are actually a little bit more threatening or worthy of your time.
Yeah, and you know, again, like if I would hope, and maybe this is naive, but I would hope that if the value of the written word or the value of the visual is like truly worthy of itself, then like AI is a long way from being able to really replace that, right? There will be some component of it that's soulless and will be not resonate to the audience in the same way, or at least as broadly, and that will help protect, right? Because like if like right now, and as you know, I've spent a lot of time the last few months really diving deep into this for the day job. I right now I really genuinely believe that like it like the AI tools that are out there can draw better than me, right? They can't write better than me, right? Like, and so I'd like to think that if you're a really talented scriptwriter, screenwriter, what have you, or a really talented, like you're good, like you're going to be safe, right? Like you might not be safe for like the stock stuff, but again, like I would argue if these things can replace you doing like stock work, then you probably need to be replaced. Then like what was your real value, right? Like if you're a pitch man and ChatGPT can give you 10 logos or slogans for your ad campaign that are as good to the end customer as what you were coming up with, you probably got to do your job better, right? Like that just means like what value were you really bringing, right? Whereas ChatGPT or its competitors are not going to create the next script to the wire. It's not happening. It's not. No, they're not capable of it, right? It's just not going to happen. Now, could it be a scenario where like a showrunner can use these tools to help like punch up some ideas, and then they can tweak them and fine tune them so they don't need as many writers in the room, yeah, that's possible. That's possible, right? And like we'll have to deal with that when it comes, and that would kind of stink. But you know, unfortunately, that is kind of the way the world, right? The world evolves and moves on. We don't, we don't have anywhere nearly as many people farming fields as we used to because of machinery and technology, right? We don't have as many people working on a factory floor as we used to because of technology, and like we're generally accepting of that. Like if you were the factory worker, you're not accepting it, but like we as consumers, right? Like we're buying our iPhones, right? Like we're ordering from Amazon because Amazon's got really efficient robots in warehouses that get us our stuff really fast, right? Like, so I'm just saying, like, change is not inherently bad, but it does have some unintended consequences, and as creatives, we just need to do a good job as supporters of the creators, we need to do just try and do as good a job as we can of like giving them other financial lifelines to support themselves in their craft when like some of these like more conventional doors close,
Yes.
I'll get off my pulpit now.
That's it for that one.